Welcome everybody to Northwest Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I am Joshua Berg, the intern minister. I'm so delighted to see all your faces and have everybody with us this morning. A Northwest Unitarian Universalist Congregation is a religious community that challenges us to grow in spirit, knowledge, acceptance, and action. We provide support and warmth in times of need and joy. We provide opportunities for personal growth, thought, learning, sharing, creativity, and listening. We offer a place to explore spirituality. We work towards solutions to social issues. We provide comfort and companionship. And we welcome members as we grow in number and diversity. This morning we're joined by our wonderful staff, the Time for Wonder, our youth story will be read by Star Austin, our Director of Religious Education. Our hymns were recorded by Ken Hermanot, and our pianist who played on those hymns is Alex Myers. We have our tech host, Ben Gable, and we are joined today by a couple of congregants. Reading our Healing Water Ritual will be Ariana Abel, and our Chalice Lighter and Opening Words will be read by Nicole Ladouceur Janowitz. So thank you all for joining us, and if you'd like to join in worship in the future, please reach out to us, and we'd love to hear you during our service. Today's service is ordered a little bit differently. We're going to start out with our joys and sorrows, which is a spiritual practice, but I wanted the service, I don't know if you noticed, in the order of service, instead of the prelude and the postlude, I have the priorate and the posterate. It's the before prayer and the after prayer, because I want to frame the worship as a prayer response to our joys and sorrows. So we're going to start with those joys and sorrows, and it's one of the ways we build our congregational community, and by sharing our greatest joys and deepest sorrows. So we're going to pause for quiet for a moment to honor the joys and sorrows we've heard and the unspoken ones that we all carry. And then I am going to share the priorate, which is a centering practice combined with music to as sort of a prayer response to the joys and sorrows to bring us back in the moment and spiritually center us. And it is being led by one of the first, she identifies as female, black, and mixed race Zen Buddhist priests, one of the first to be ordained, Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams.
No, it doesn't have to be really vigorous, but we want to just feel and get in the practice of feeling and connecting with our core, right? Because again, so much of the way that our society currently works, it's about cutting us off from that, right? And that cuts us off from what matters. And then find our seat, right? It's really important that we take our seat with intention, not just plop down in it, right? It's not just like a chair. It's like you're really, truly taking your seat, right? The seat of your power, right? You feel a sense of connection, your roots right down through to the earth. She's got you. She can hold you. And so you feel that's where you get that integrity from, by sending that taproot down, right? And saying I'm here. And spiral the energy upward, crown towards the sky. Crown goes up towards the sky and it drops the chin. And we feel what kind of dignity? What's the thing about inherent dignity? That's right. You don't have to earn it, and it can't be taken away. It's really important for us to get that. You don't have to earn it, and it cannot be taken away. There's not an incident, there's not something that can happen to you, there's not something that you can do that inherent dignity is taken away. You just have to choose it again and again, to choose to step into it. And it's yours. So we align ourselves first vertically. Right? And then we extend out horizontally. Right? And that's where the sense of like our generosity and giving and openness can happen once we're aligned vertically. And if we're not grounded and we extend outward, right, then we're off balance. So we feel our sense of just our width, and so maybe drawing your shoulders up and out. And then you extend into the space and feel the space around you. And extend that space further as you feel relationship with others. And further. And you can fill the whole room. Looking out on the horizon, the generations in front of you. Feeling the generations behind you. And really taking your place right here.
Thank you very much. Today we light our chalice with the words of Anne Lamott. Your problem is how you are going to spend this one and precious life you have been issued. Whether you're going to spend it trying to look good and creating the illusion that you have power over circumstances, or whether you are going to taste it, enjoy it, and find out the truth of who you are. And this was just working. There we go.
An artist friend of mine named Noah Scalin created a skull a day for a year. Now you may be asking what that has to do with the sermon topics today, Passover and spiritual practice. Well, Noah, he committed to a purposeful, intentional daily act. He put checks in place, such as sharing it on social media, that encouraged, motivated, and let's be honest, pretty much forced him to keep up this practice. And he set a rule. Each creation had to be a skull. And rather than limit his creative expression, these boundaries and pressures encouraged more of that creative expression. And rather than distracting him from day-to-day life with this anxiety of wondering, how am I going to keep up coming up with 365 unique skulls? Instead of that anxiety, it actually forced him to focus his energy each day, enabling him to then return to all the other craziness of the day, reset and refocused. Spiritual practice can be anything that recenters the spirit. Now, when I started seminary and I was told that a requirement to graduate was for me to engage a regular spiritual practice, I imagined it something very strict and involved, and I tried a daily meditation, and I tried journaling, and I tried a few other things, and nothing really stuck. I realized it often takes time. It takes practice to develop something like that more involved. And those are great things, but it takes some practice. But no. I needed spiritual centering immediately, right then. I didn't have the resources to join a Zendo or other spiritual gym or to build up that meditation muscle and discipline, let alone something as elaborate like Noah's Skull a Day project. No. The fact is, especially during this time of pandemic, of existential exhaustion, we all need a spiritual practice right now, this moment. And few of us have the wherewithal to run out and immediately start a goat yoga practice or buy $100 Zafu meditation cushion, let alone make an artwork each day for a year. It's just not going to happen. So let me put your mind more at ease about your own ability to engage in spiritual centering by returning to Skull a Day for a moment. So, yes, some days the skulls would be very complex that Noah created, like when he enlisted friends for this nude skull on day 357. And some skulls were very time consuming. And let me see if I can, there we go. And intentional, like this detailed painting of a dog skull that he made on day 73. Or let's go to this skull on day 10, made from cutouts of each state of the United States of America, regrouped. And other times, he just simply had to make do. He didn't have the time to make a complicated skull. Like this, his first skull that he made, which was a simple paper cutout, very easy. Or on extremely, extremely busy days, like the one where he just arranged toothpicks into a skull, number 176, as he ate in between busy meetings. There were things he can do. Or when he made a skull sheet in a hotel room when he was on a business trip, skull number 77. And then there were the days, sometimes a few in a row, like day number 11 and 12, and this was just over a week into the project, where he was just simply too overwhelmed. And those days, it was all he could do to just think about making a skull. But when your awareness is heightened, however, when you're thinking and purposeful and intentional, even for a few moments, you notice things you otherwise would not have noticed. So just thinking him centered him enough to stumble upon skulls. And he found some scraps of metal for day 11 lying around the junk. And on day 12, he noticed a cloud skull. You can see the cloud skull looking off to the side. So Skull a Day is one form of ritualized centering spiritual practice can take. Now, I also mentioned that I was going to talk about Passover in the sermon title. We just finished the Passover celebration. Well, I'm going to give you one other example quickly of committing to a daily practice, which I think will help make that connection to Passover, bridge that gap, or part the waters of the sea, as it were. There is a Jewish commandment. It's found in the book of Leviticus to do what is called counting the Omer. Now, Jews used to make an offering at the temple of Jerusalem of a sheaf, or Omer is what a sheaf is, of grain as the seasonal harvest began. And then they would count 49 days until the end of the harvest, when a final offering of grain was made in gratitude for the fruits of the harvest. The harvest and the counting of the Omer began the day after Passover. So that's the connection. But when there was no more temple of Jerusalem, the counting of the Omer, it became a daily spiritual practice instead. Since it began at Passover, which is the story of the Jews gaining freedom from slavery in Egypt, instead of celebrating the fruits of the harvest, now the Omer became a celebration of the fruits of spiritual preparation in the desert, leading up to receiving the Ten Commandments. It's a celebration known as Shavuot, which occurs 49 days after Passover, just as the harvest length. And this is also this month, of spiritual renewal for our Muslim siblings. Ramadan is a time of spiritual reflection and heightened worship. Now, for both of these, Shavuot, Ramadan, Pentecost, Easter, spring, there are checks and rules in place. Omer is counted in community, and each week is often associated with one of the seven sefirot, or emanations, of the Kabbalist practice: Chesed, loving kindness; Gevurah, might; Tiferet, beauty; Netzach, victory; Chod, acknowledgement; Yesod, foundation; Malchut, kingdom. So that's a rule. I have a great set of Omer cards with a painting and words on each one that facilitate this daily connection. It's really cool. You see an image and then you see a word every day of the 49 days. And Ramadan, too, involves fasting. So there's rules there. And an extended prayer as far as I understand. There is a set time period for both of these as well. So there's that rule as well, 29 days and 49 days. So there is still intentionality of daily spiritual practice in practices such as these. But the pressure is less overwhelming than, for instance, creating a skull a day for a year. It's a doable, even during a time of existential exhaustion. It forces practitioners to center themselves, enabling them to confront each new day. Lost in the desert, for instance, preparing their spirits to confront the divine, however many days later, in whatever form that takes. Spiritual practice can be anything that recenters the spirit, whether it's creating an artwork or whether it's simply counting or praying, as long as it's intentionally centering. Now, am I conflating holy commandments to prepare one's spirit for connection with the divine, to making a skull a day, to a Halloween arts and crafts project? Yes. With no disrespect, that is what I'm doing. They are both connecting to divine, although I wouldn't phrase it exactly as a Halloween art project. Spiritual practice is anything that gives rise to a religious experience where one connects with the divine. And no, 3 years of seminary has not turned me away from humanism. It just opened my mind a bit. As a humanist, Unitarian Universalist, I understand religious experience in this way, as a transformative experience of awe, as a connection to the larger and profound divine that is the living energy that pervades us all within and outside of ourselves. Spiritual practice can be an hour of meditation or a fasting pilgrimage to Mecca, or it can be simply a moment of reflection on a cloud. It can lead to extraordinary experiences and enlightenments, but also just to a simple recentering of one's focus and energy, a recentering of one's spirit. The writer Anne Lamott, who Nicole quoted, talked recently about existential exhaustion during this pandemic, or as she calls it, COVID college. She talked about her husband and her performing the sacrament of putter and ploppage. Now, not to be disrespectful to the idea of sacrament, which is an important ritual which connects Christians to the divine, if puttering around the house and plopping on the couch is done purposefully to connect one's spirit to the larger divine energy, it too becomes sacred, a spiritual practice. Anne Lamont also said this: everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, even you. And that moment of unplugging is vital. If you can't get into a soul cycle class right now or sit in the lotus position for an hour, just submit to the slight pressure of a purposeful daily spiritual unplugging. Be intentional to stop for a few minutes to look at the sky while you're walking your dog, or close your eyes to navigate your soul for a moment during a commercial between episodes of Schitt's Creek. I believe we all can commit to spiritual practice, and we must, especially as the world is wearing down so many of our spirits. Spiritual centering is even more vital for each present moment, and in order to prepare us, as the Jews did in the desert, with renewed energy for meeting the divine in whatever form it takes for each of us when this pandemic ends. I will now play the final words of the opening video I showed from, as I said, the first Black mixed race female Zen priest to be ordained, Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams, because Reverend Williams says this much better than I do.
And then finally connecting and organizing all of your action around what matters. We can't always find our yoga mat, we can't always find our meditation cushion, we can't always burst out into ecstatic dance, but we can take that 30 seconds, right? I center in 5 seconds flat. It's a muscle, you build it, you come back to what matters. You keep building that muscle, you come back to what matters. And as long as you keep coming back to what matters for you, we all benefit.
And our first hymn will be number 1068, Rising Green, sung by Ken Hermanot, and piano accompaniment by Alex Myers.
My blood doth rise in the roots of yon oak, the sap doth run in my veins, unless my soul, like the open sky, where the stars forever have lain, where the stars, where the stars, where the stars forever have lain. My hands hold the weavings of time without end, my sight as deep as the sea, beating my heart sounds the measures of old, that of love's eternity, that of love, that of love, that of love's eternity. I feel the tides as they answer the moon, rushing on a far distant sand. Winging my song is the wind of my breast, and my love blows over the land. And my love, and my love, and my love blows over the land. My foot carries days of the old into new. Our dreaming shows us the way. Wondrous our faith settles deep in the earth, rising green to bring a new day. Rising green, rising green, rising green to bring a new day.
Good morning. This morning's story by Patrick O'Neill comes to us as a fable from the Maasai warriors. It is said that in all of Africa, no tribe was considered to have more warriors who were more fearsome or more intelligent than the mighty Maasai. It is perhaps surprising then to learn that the traditional greeting passed between Maasai warriors, Kasarian Injira, one would always say to another, means, "And how are the children?" It is still the traditional greeting, acknowledging the high value that the Maasai always place on their children's well-being. Even warriors with no children of their own would give the traditional answer, "All the children are well," meaning, of course, that peace and safety prevail, that the priorities of always giving over the protection to the young and the powerless are in place. The Maasai society has not forgotten its reason for being, its proper functions, its responsibilities. All the children are well means that life is good. It means that the daily struggles for existence do not preclude the proper care for the young. I wonder how it might affect our own consciousness and our children's welfare in our culture if we took to greeting each other with this daily question: how are the children? I wonder if we heard that question and passed it along to each other a dozen times a day, would it begin to make a difference in the reality of how children are thought of and cared about in our community. I wonder if every adult among us, parent and non parent alike, felt an equal weight for the daily care and protection of all the children in our community, in our town, in our state, in our country, in our world. I wonder if we could truly say without hesitation, the children are well. What would it be like to begin worship services by answering this question? And how are the children? And if every town leader had to answer this question at the beginning of the meeting, how are the children? Are they well? Wouldn't it be interesting to hear those answers? And I wonder how this would deepen us into a spiritual practice to center ourselves around the weakest among us, around the vulnerable, around the young, to ask ourselves daily as a spiritual endeavor, and how are the children? Are they well?
Thank you. Some Jews add a cup of water to the Passover table. There's the traditional cup of wine for the Mashiach, for the Messiah, but there's a cup of water added to the Passover table for Miriam, Moses' older sister, who was said to have traveled with a well of healing waters throughout their desert journey as they did this counting of the Omer, this spiritual practice. She traveled with a well of healing waters. The Passover legend also tells of Miriam doing another spiritual practice in the desert, gathering women to rejoice in song on the shores of the Red Sea to celebrate the crossing of the Red Sea. And as we too cross through the turbulent seas and the arid deserts of our time, let us celebrate the victories and the joys and the children and the love along the way and the beloved community of which we are a part by being mindful of the life-giving powers of water and song.
Water is also a translucent lens through which we can only see vague images. Right now, we are considering our future beyond this pandemic as if through water. Glimpses of what may come, unsure of what will take shape. For this ritual, we will begin with a prayer for renewal. We draw from the well springs of liberation for one another, for movement, for our world. Love is liberation, as water is life.
And we will continue after that lovely prayer with a song for healing and a blessing for life. The song is called Mi Meine, which roughly translates to From the Fountains. It's by Avra Shapiro featuring Yael Shoznit with lyrics adapted from Isaiah 12:3, book 12, verse 3. So when we play the song, you can chant along if you're so inclined. The lyrics will be in the image, and they are Mi Meine HaYeshua Shavtem Mayim Bisason, or in English, we will draw water in celebration from the well springs of liberation, Mayim Chayim, living water.
As the song plays, we invite you to first meditate on the water. Hopefully you all have your little glass of water. Look at it and into it. Consider and be grateful for its power to heal, to liberate, to hold life, giving you the strength to face the unknown with the confidence that we have what we need to sustain us. We invite you to then consume the water, physically or otherwise, welcoming in its power to heal, to liberate, to hold life. Let it quench your thirst for strength, radical hope, and healing as it literally fills you with the liquid that has sustained life throughout time.
Me, my name, Yeshua, Shavtemayim besason. Me, my name, Yeshua. Shavtemayim besason.
And so why is it important for people to have a new navigator of the soul?
And so I think it's really important to say, you seem to be feeling really exhausted and kind of flattened by it all. And I'm wondering if we might just sit here a minute and breathe our way into something, a place in us that might be fully alive and not defeated and not depressed. People that I'm close to and people that I speak to, you've lost a lot of those child aspects. Like, Jesus saying you must become a child to get into the kingdom of heaven, which is a sweet, gentle heart and a more spacious awareness of life. It's not about what's on the TV set tonight. It's not about the Oprah interview or MSNBC. It's about this deeper, pure, truer thing. There's a great phrase in the Hebrew Bible in one of the Psalms where the psalmist, probably David, in one of his states, says, he talks about deep calling to deep. So that I think we imagine the waterfall calling to the stars, say. But we also understand it from the mystical level or the level of soul to mean the deepest, deepest part of my heart, calling to the sky, calling to the birds, the calling to the galaxy, all one. And as soon as you are connected umbilically to something bigger than what's going on in your kind of rattle trap pinball machine mind, you're free.
Our next hymn will be hymn number 220, Bring Out the Festal Bread, again by Ken Hermanot and Alex Myers.
Bring out the festal bread and sing songs of freedom. Shout with the slaves who fled and sing songs of freedom. What modern pharaohs live in arrogance crowned? Who shall be sent to challenge folly unbounded? Bring out the festal bread and sing songs of freedom. Shout with the slaves who fled and sing songs of freedom. Chains still there are to break, their days are not finished. Metal or subtle made, they're still not diminished. Bring out the festal bread and sing songs of freedom. Shout with the slaves who fled and sing songs of freedom. Still does resentment bind each brother and sister. Still do the plagues affect us, red as the river. Bring out the festal bread and sing songs of freedom. Shout with the slaves who fled and sing songs of freedom. Long be our journeying, and justice is worth it. Dance, Sister Miriam, and help us to birth it. Bring out the festal bread and sing songs of freedom. Shout with the slaves who fled and sing songs of freedom. Oh, people, lift your heads and look to the mountains. Bushes of flame still call us, rocks still gush fountains. Bring out the festal bread and sing songs of freedom. Shout with the slaves who fled and sing songs of freedom.
Thank you all. I'm going to do the extinguishing of the chalice and the closing words because I wanted to introduce the post orate. So our closing words are again from Anne Lamott. If you don't know her, she's a brilliant writer. And her words are this. Well, let me relight my chalice first because it went out. She says, I do not understand the mystery of grace, only that it meets us where we are, and it does not leave us where it found us. For the final song, a little background. The singer is my mother-in-law, Gloria Buchanan, my wife Tisha's mother, who was a gospel singer over 40 years ago. She had an accident in the Veterans Hospital in New York. It was a medical malpractice, and she had to have a tracheotomy, and she lost her ability to sing. So when I met my wife, since the time I met my wife, I'd never heard my mother-in-law's actual voice. She spoke with in a strained whisper, post-surgery whisper, like that type of thing. So I'd never heard her actual voice until one day we uncovered this recording of her singing gospel. And the reason I play it is because with all the trials and tribulations she had, and this was just the beginning, there were many, every time I saw her, she smiled. She found a way through every moment. I don't know how to, it was her faith, she was a Christian too, but it was her spirit to center herself spiritually. In the midst of craziness, she would focus and center herself spiritually. Even through all her trials and tribulations, it was just she was an amazing woman. So I wanted to play this song that we uncovered. It's a famous gospel song, Storm is Passing Over by Charles Albert Tinley, sung by my mother-in-law, Gloria Buchanan.
Oh, praise God, the storm is passing over. Yeah, the storm is passing on over. I know the storm is passing over. Hallelujah. Oh, the storm is passing over. Oh, the storm is passing on over. I know the storm is passing over. Hallelujah. Thank you. Thank you. It's all right. The storm is passing over. Thank God that the storm is passing over. Oh, the storm is passing over. I know the storm's passing over. Hallelujah. Oh, take courage, my soul. The journey may be long, though the night be dark, and I am so far from home. Oh, but thanks be to God, the morning light appears. Oh, thanks the storm passing over. Yeah, the storm passing on over. I know the storm is passing over. Hallelujah. Oh, praise God, the storm passing over. Yes, the storm passing on over. I know the storm is passing over. Hallelujah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all. And as we go into breakout rooms, I'd like you to please reflect on your own ability to center spiritually in your own spiritual practices. Take care, everybody.